I'm a business owner. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Mutombo Coffee. We're a social enterprise focusing on supporting African and Latin American female farmers. And I came into town because Miami loves its coffee, and it's a great city for causes. And the American Business Forum was a great business networking event, so we've had some fun, listened to some great speakers, and we're going to convert some of these spectators and friends of the president and friends of Miami into coffee drinkers, hopefully Mutombo coffee drinkers.
That's awesome. I heard, like, when we were talking off camera, that you mentioned that you just heard about this event, so I guess you didn't see the lineup initially to bring you here. But, you know, what did you hear? Like, what did your friends tell you that got you interested, that you're like, I'm going to come all the way back from Boston just for this event?
Well, they knew what the lineup was, and when they said, oh, President Trump is going to be there, and Jeff Bezos are going to be there, and this is the world's biggest American business forum, et cetera, I was like, yeah, is he going to show, or is he going to come up on, is he going to be on like a video screen, or et cetera? And I was like, no, I think that he's really going to come. And so I had some business here anyway, so I just arranged it just in case he didn't show, but he did show, and he did his thing for 55 minutes, and I'll listen to Mr. Bezos in a few minutes. And you had just some very competent Ken Griffin, who's moved here from New York. So they brought a world-class lineup. These people showed up, and the audience was very supportive, and I learned a lot and made some new friends.
Awesome. Is there a speaker that maybe caught your attention, you would say is your favorite, or maybe even said something interesting?
Well, they all said something a little bit interesting, but I think, Ken Griffin's take was interesting to me, because here is a billionaire guy. Obviously, the mayor was just crowned or just won the election a couple days ago, and so there's a lot of nervousness about that. And of course, Miami's really taking advantage of, New Yorkers and others in some of the big cities, that this is a business-friendly city, and so that seems to be true. I have never lived in Miami. I have friends here. I have lived in New York. And these issues are important. So really getting the perspective of a businessman who is thinking about doing more in Miami, as am I. Nothing to the scale, of course, of Mr. Bezos or Mr. Griffin, but it is very important for me to be in a business-friendly environment. And I don't know for sure because we're just coming here, but I can tell you the public relations is through the roof.
So I'm sure there's so much, since you're operating your own business, that I'm sure, like, regulations, there's so many things that I hear that kind of there are challenges, or it takes a long time to get stuff off the ground. So what do you think in general is like a challenge that most business owners face, whether new or like even experienced?
Well, what I say to business owners, and this is something that we say inside our company, and I do quite a bit of public speaking and podcasts and stuff, there's always going to be something. There's always going to be a shock. Right now there's tariffs, and then there was COVID, and then there's geopolitical issues, and then, so all of these things are going to happen. And in the coffee business, there's so much price volatility over the last couple of decades. There's always something that can affect. So maybe it's tariffs this year, but last year it was a pest that was eating the crops, et cetera. So, and that's a good point for all of us to remember. And if there's one thread that all of these entrepreneurs and business speakers and leaders sort of say, is you've got to have resiliency. You can't predict the future, so you just have to try to be as best as you can ready for anything and don't stop, which is why we're in the coffee business, because it helps you keep going.
I love that you mentioned that, because whenever I try to talk to people about tariffs, they just shy away and they're like, oh, like, we'll get through it, it's fine, it's not that big a deal. But for you, coffee, it's like, seems like has a big impact, especially importing from South America and so on. So what has been happening so far with that, if you can share with me?
No, it's great, and yes, tariffs. So America doesn't really grow coffee. There's a little bit of grown in California, and so there are no jobs to save here through that. And so clearly the administration has other bigger fish or other issues that it's focusing on, and so I get the big picture, given that we source from 7 African countries as well. So part of what we do regarding the point of being resilient is, okay, well, doesn't look like Brazilian coffee is the right thing to purchase now. Let's see what we can do in Costa Rica. Let's see what we can do in Colombia as it relates to Latin America. Similarly, in Africa, there is some kind of skirmish in the Congo. So then we start looking at how do we create redundancy and resiliency by sourcing from Ethiopia and Kenya and Tanzania and Burundi. And so the point is, it's a supply chain challenge, and we don't know where that's going to come from. So try to build a resilient supply chain, and stuff that you can't control, don't worry about. Fortunately, you have to make a great product so that if you must pass on that